live stream. Okay, we're going to be live over here on YouTube. I forgot to paint my nails. We're going to be live over here on YouTube. And then at the same time, I will be on TikTok recording probably in 3 separate events because their videos only allow 10 minutes. And this is probably going to take 3 parts over on TikTok. But it won't interrupt our live over here too much to do this. Because I want it in its entirety. It'll be easier if it's in its entirety over here on YouTube. What I have to say about this James Franco 2319 situation. Okay, give me a sec. I gotta set up TikTok. Gotta rearrange my gaming part of my desk. And I did take a lot of notes for this one, so we're gonna hit those notes a lot. Okay. We're gonna totally hit those notes. Okay. There we go. Whoops. Please tell me. Okay. Take out the sound. I always forget to take out the sound. I always forget that. Okay. Here we go. You guys ready for this? Okay. Because I took some major notes. Okay. We got some major notes. All right. Here we go. James Franco, 2319 TikTok page that everybody's going wild over. What is going on with James Franco? Who is James Franco? Now, I watched 2 different YouTube streamers. I don't know if they know about each other, but the information I got from each one of them is interesting. By the way, this will be in my entirety on my YT channel. It will probably come in 3 parts on here on TikTok. This is part 1, and it'll be uninterrupted, unstopped over here on YouTube. So, anyways. So first, I'm going to get to Coffee and Colt second because I watch her all the time. I've been watching her for a couple of years now. And I'll explain her in a minute. But first, I want to explain Sobering Stories, who I've been watching for just over a year. I trust his analysis and his deep dive work that he does because he deep dives. And I appreciate that. So he just published a video about James Franco 2319. And the reason why people are freaking out about this whole, 2319 is the movie Monsters, Inc. Now, in that movie, 2319 is the code for when a kid has touched you or a kid's object has touched you. You're contaminated. And then they take that big fluffy monster and his hair is, next time you see him, his hair is gone and he's got bandages on him. And every time he gets a sock or something on him, somebody calls 2319, he gets tackled. And it's pretty annoying because it's very painful to be washed of all of this. So I'm adding in some of my own remarks here, by the way. And so, interesting enough, on his channel, they have linked this Monsters, Inc. story. And this is what intrigued me to do this story. Is they have linked Monsters, Inc. is a movie about a company. Now, I'm going to add in some of my own thoughts, but I'll tell you which ones are mine and which, so you don't, because I don't like to take other people's thoughts. So, Sobering Stories says that it's about them siphoning screams from children for their livelihood. And in our world, that is happening today. It's called adrenochrome. Everybody's noticed Ellen DeGeneres. These are my thoughts now. Ellen DeGeneres, kind of looking a little old after she left America. Got away from her adrenochrome, allegedly, by the way. And that this is a representation. And so the 2319 could be James Franco signaling about the things he knows in Hollywood, the deep down things that he knows. Okay? My thoughts are, one of the things they like to portray that I'm sitting here pondering and trying to think of how is Roz and the paperwork. How she's so adamant and always after Mike Wazowski for the paperwork, the proper paperwork to be filed and done every time you harvest screams. So this is very interesting. Roz's character, I want to bring that thought in for people to kind of mill over and think about what Roz's character means. Okay. So also, okay, moving on from Monsters Inc., he's also reported that the shirt that James Franco wears in every video, he hand wrote Bruce Robinson on it. I think it's a pause symbol, not the two towers. It's pause. Because I think he wants people to pause and think about Bruce Robinson and look into him. Because Bruce Robinson in 1968 played Benvolio. And the director was Franco Zeffirelli. And he did stuff to Bruce. You know, kind of with Corey Feldman, kind of, you know, what Corey Feldman warned you of in Hollywood. Okay. But then Bruce went on to create a book or a movie called With Nail and Eye. And James Franco, in one of his videos, has some random slides and some random things going on. And in the bottom of the screen, you can see February 2nd, 1987, posted on the corner of the screen. Now, that's the day that the movie With Nail and Eye was in theaters. And in that movie, there's this uncle that is based on Bruce Robinson. Okay. And then later on, and we'll talk about this in a whole separate video. I don't want to get into this. This is something I've gotten into in the past, and this is something I would love to jump back into. But he also wrote a book called Timestamp, and the movie's in theaters. And Timestamp is about. Oh no, they called it. No, he wrote a movie called They All Love Jack in 2017. It's about Jack the Ripper. Now, his thing is he thinks that Steven Adams, a.k.a. Michael Maybrick, is Michael Maybrick is Jack the Ripper because these killings very eerily resemble Freemason ritualistic things. Give me a pause just for 2 seconds. Because okay, here we go. Okay, yes, okay. I have done videos in the past on Jack the Ripper. Everybody loves their favorite thing, and one TikToker, maybe I'll have to get back into it with her. She brought up that she thinks that it's the painter Edward Degas, who did not live in Whitechapel. He lived in France, and he traveled to Whitechapel often. And the real person that they were after was Mary Kelly, who did used to live in France, but she went by Mary Kelly, which is a very English name, after she left France. We can get into all that later. I think it's Edward Degas. So, anyways, the ballerina painter. But they think it's this Steven Adams, aka Michael Maybrick. I can't even read my own handwriting. And so this will conclude part 1, because now we're going to talk about Coffee and Colts in the second part. Coffee and Colts is somebody who is from the UK. I'm just going to give these details, and I don't mean them in any harm or anything. These are just details of backstory of who she is. She is lesbian. She has been in the Hollywood scene. She's shown videos of Rosie O'Donnell leading her through parties. She has connections in Hollywood, and so her channel is often there for women, the lesbian community, and the true things that go on in Hollywood based on her time in Hollywood and her current friends that she never names, but she talks about in her films that are currently in Hollywood and give her information. And so she's talked about, And one of the reasons why I started watching, she's a huge Buffy fan. She loves the show Buffy. All she ever dreamed about was making a show on Buffy. Oops, sorry. Everything's falling off my lap. And she did a lot about Buffy, and that's kind of what turned me onto her channel. But then she does crime and cults and stuff, and she does a lot of talking about the Scientology community, and especially she hates with a passion Ashton Kutcher. And I think her thing now is that in every episode she has to mention Ashton Kutcher and how much she hates him. And I'm not saying I blame her, because there's some questionable stuff about Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis and Danny Masterson and the whole cast of that 70s show. And she does make an episode on that 70s show and goes into every character but Topher Grace, because we all know that Topher Grace would not hang out with his coworkers. There's a reason why Topher Grace wouldn't. And that's because they were all unhinged and did a lot of things in the Scientology church for Danny Masterson and covered up him and Ashton Kutcher's crimes. And because of Ashton Kutcher, a serial killer got away and ended up killing another person before they got caught, because Ashton Kutcher, well, he called Danny Masterson instead of the cops. And so she likes to go into all of that. And so we're going to go into what Coffee and Colts has to say in part 2 on TikTok in just a second. I'll restart TikTok and we'll go into part 2, and we're going to talk about Coffee and Colts' opinion. Love you guys. Okay. So let me title this real quick, and then we will get on to it. So James Franco 2319. Okay. Sorry, I got to let's see. And then this all has to let's see, James Franco. Let's see. I gotta hashtag all this and stuff and get this out there. Like, ugh. But I want to make sure it gets out there. So James Franco 2319. And then okay, and then let's see, I want to see if I can mention sobering stories. I think they have a TikTok, sobering stories. Yes, they do. And then I don't know if Coffee and Colts has one, but I'll see. And I love Coffee and Colts, and I love the way she talks, and she's just a very, very beautiful person. I think that's her TikTok. If not, I tagged the wrong person. Yeah, we'll see if it's her. I want to look up Coffee and Colts real quick. Coffee and Colts. So this is going to be a weird live because I'm doing all this stuff in between. Okay. Colts. Okay, who's the person I just tagged? Hooey. Coffee and Colts. I don't know. Coffee and Colts. I don't know. Maybe I tagged the wrong person. Coffee and Colts is like a popular thing. If you're going to do crime, name your channel Coffee and Colts and everybody will follow you, by the way. Like, steal that name, I guess. Whatever. Just kidding. Anyways, maybe I tagged the wrong person. So let's go ahead and restart this and get into part 2. We're going to get into part 2. So, County Downey. Okay. You guys get to see how behind the scenes, how I kind of go live for a sec. Just kidding. Okay. Well, we got a lot to talk about. Okay, because Coffee and Colts, like I said, they go into that 70s show. Danny Masterson, Wilder Valdemara, Laura Prepon, her time in, because she dated Danny Masterson's brother, who was on Malcolm in the Middle. And for 10 years, he dragged her through Scientology, abused her horribly. She also helped with bullying Danny Masterson's victims in the parking lot of the Scientology, because as we know, Scientology likes to deal with it. And so she covers all of that. Wilder Von Marema and the way he likes to only date teens. He dated Lindsay Lohan when she was 17, made her keep it quiet, said they were only friends and stuff like that. Ashton Kutcher's extremely bad behavior. Oh, crap. I got to restart this. Oh, I forgot to take out the sound. I'm sorry. We got to restart this. You're going to hear this info again on YouTube. Sorry. We're going to go over this one more time. I hate that. Why does it auto add sound? I'm tired of it auto adding sound. I don't like that it does that. Okay, sorry. We're going to go through this one more time. Okay, Coffee and Colts. She covers, like I said, Hollywood. She covers Hollywood and a lot that goes on there. And I've seen all these videos that I'm going to talk to because I've watched these videos over the past year as she has put them out. And so I'm going off of my memory, tiny bit of notes, but mostly my memory from these videos that she did. So she did one on the 70s show where she went over Danny Masterson, Wilder Valdemara, Laura Prepon, Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis, everything that went on behind the scenes in the show. Topher Grace, not too much because he avoided all of this. So Topher Grace saved himself and just went on for a career and didn't need friends because he didn't need friends like this. But Laura Prepon dated Danny Masterson's brother, who plays on Malcolm in the Middle. Now, the wonderful thing about Bryan Cranston, to know about Bryan Cranston, is when that 70s show was going on, Danny Masterson brought Scientology to the set and brought everybody but Topher Grace to do Scientology stuff. Not all of them joined. Laura Prepon for 10 years was kind of stuck in it because she was dating Chris Masterson. And then Chris Masterson tried to do the same thing on the set of Malcolm in the Middle, but Bryan Cranston stepped in to protect those kids and said, no, these guys are not going with you to do Scientology stuff. I will not allow it. And so wonderful Bryan Cranston stepped in and said, you're not taking kids with you, because everybody was underage except for Chris Masterson on the set of Malcolm in the Middle, minus the parents, minus Bryan Cranston and his co-star. And so wonderful Bryan Cranston, kudos to you for not letting Chris Masterson recruit everybody, because he turns out to be very abusive to Laura Prepon. She stayed with him for 10 years, but the abuse was bad and she did finally get out. And it's hard to get out of a Scientology relationship. They don't let you out very easy. We could talk about Tom Cruise on another stream about how everybody was given to him by Scientology. And it's not easy to get out of it. And then as soon as they got out of their relationship with Tom Cruise, they would be assigned to find a new one. So she's also made videos on Jared Leto recently and his horrible behavior. Russell Brand, and we all know Russell Brand, Katy Perry, their marriage, Russell Brand's horrible behavior and his change to Christianity, and she covers all of that. She's also touched down on, well, I would never watch a movie with Rebel Wilson in it, and I'm glad she did a show on Rebel Wilson. and the lawsuits that she has open and the horrible person that Rebel Wilson is, because I would never watch a movie with Rebel Wilson in it. Pitch Perfect, people are like, oh, but it's a song about singing. No, it's not. And I wouldn't watch it because Rebel Wilson's in it. I am very like, there are some actresses I will skip there. The only time I watched Pitch Perfect was because my sister-in-law forced me to, and I was trying to bond with her, and the whole 2 hours I just felt disgusting. Sitting there with headphones on, we were sharing headphones in front of her mother, who is ultra Utah Mormon, and she asked the sister, what are we doing? And she said, oh, I'm watching Pitch Perfect with Rose. And she's like, oh, okay. And I'm sitting here going, wow, you think I'm an inappropriate person and I make inappropriate comments, yet you're letting your daughter watch Pitch Perfect with Rebel Wilson. And that was the only movie I watched, and I never watched any of the sequels because of, it was just disgusting. Okay. And if you think, I just, no Utah Mormon should be watching that movie, by the way, in my opinion. So let's get on with it. But she's talked about Tobey Maguire's $1 billion poker game and all the people he's invited, which do include Leonardo DiCaprio. She's covered Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen and the abuse they suffered and the horrible, and I cannot believe to say this, but working with what's his name that played the dad? Oh my gosh, how inappropriate Bob Saget is. Okay, and everything. Why the Olsen twins do not want to be part of anything anymore because the horrible life they grew up in Hollywood. And so she's done. So recently, then she covered, of course, I love that she covered Dax Shepard. I don't know if that relationship is, they're one of those goofy couples that just say dark humor out there, or this really is this way behind the scenes and they're just open about their horrible relationship on their podcast. And then we also have, she's recently, and this is what ties into James Franco, she's covered Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen, and their inappropriate behavior, and how Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen, Tobey Maguire, Ashton Kutcher, and Diddy all have a relationship with each other. They all tie each other. They're in that tight 6 degrees of separation here. And if James Franco's part of that, that's bad. So let's get into who is James Franco according to Coffee and Colts. So his career hit popularity in the 2010s, mostly with Freaks and Geeks. Now, Busy Phillips, his co-star, did have a hard time with him. She had a scene where she had to hit him on the chest, and at the end of the scene, James Franco got upset, grabbed her arms, threw her down on the ground, and said, never touch me like that again. It is hard for a guy to be hit on the chest, but he shouldn't have acted like that also. And then he started his career with Seth Rogen, Pineapple Express in 2008. That launched them as this duo. James Franco is one of those actors that people say, well, he just plays an exaggerated himself, or he's this method actor like Jared Leto. This is why I mentioned Jared Leto, because she goes over method acting in how he just annoyed everybody being the Joker, and James Franco's kind of one of those people that are a lot like him. And so Busy Phillips has wrote a book about it. She's done interviews about her and James Franco, but they've made up now. Because apparently it seems like James Franco can recognize, in my opinion, can recognize his bad behavior, and he does try and change. So, but there's been, so then he had an acting class, and there's been a lot of accusations from women, mostly from this acting class, about him being inappropriate. There were teens there. He promised people opportunities, roles, whatnot that they didn't get. I don't think a lot of actors do this. They promise you things that they can't have. Unless you're like their child, little Nepo baby, you're probably not getting in Hollywood, by the way. And so, and then she goes into his lawsuit with the disaster artist for, it has nothing to do with sexual abuse or SA. It has everything to do with like copyright and stuff like that. And so, like, they say that he goes after teens in social media, somebody in the comment section said James Franco came after my 13-year-old who only lives 2 hours away from James Franco. And I caught that. And also in his class, he graded them on their intimate scenes. But we all know that Hollywood wants to know if you'll do those intimate scenes or not. We do know that some people write in there that they won't do that. Some Disney used to, like, that's how Miley Cyrus got out of the business, was by doing those Playboy scenes and stuff that got her in trouble. And then some people are like, no, you have to do it. Like, there's people that talked about, I finally did my first nude scene in the movie. It wasn't as bad as I thought, blah, blah, blah. And now your nude body's out there. And so he would be like, all right, this class is going to go over these intimate things that Hollywood wants you to do. And if you can do them, then you can move forward. And he did later on, this I thought might have been part 3, but I'll add it now. He did later on admit that he slept with some girls in his class, but the rest of the accusations were incorrect. He was not inappropriate. And the Me Too movement does play into this. And we're going to go over that in part 3 in just a second, about how the Me Too movement starts to play into this and starts to ruin James Franco's career. And so James Franco says he's an artist overall, and he does things in an artist way, method acting artist way. And so these 2319 things, you might have to look at them in an artistic point of view, that this is an artist trying to relay a message. And then we're going to get into that in just a second. Also in part 3, what is the message finally that James Franco is trying to send out there? So give me a second to get this one going. Okay, see. This will be a little quicker. Part 2. Who is James Franco? And the accusations. So who's James Franco? The accusations. James Franco. Okay, I'm not going to attack coffee and Colts because I'm not sure. And then, okay, there we go. Now, let's set up number 3, and we'll get on to it. We'll get on to part 3 and finish this up. Talking about who let's get into the Me Too part of this. Okay. Boom. I'm like, you guys are on YouTube or behind the scenes. Behind the scenes. All right. Nope. Take out the song. Gonna buy my. And let's go with, there we go. All right. Let's get into the Me Too movement part about this. Okay. I want to get into the interesting aspect of the Me Too movement, which is interesting. So let's reverse and talk for a minute about Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey was ousted out of Hollywood when he was accused of his ex-girlfriend unaliving herself, and people say that Jim Carrey drove her to it. We've seen Hollywood come up with stories to get people out of the business that aren't true, but it ruins their name. I will have to look up a list for you guys. We'll go over a list, but Jim Carrey's the top one that comes to my mind right now that I can kind of think of, is Jim Carrey. Okay. So Me Too movement comes up. Scarlett Johansson gives him the little pin. Like, some of the actors are wearing the pin. She goes over how some of them mean it. Some of them don't mean it. Some of them do it because their agents told them to. Some of them, like James Franco, probably didn't totally understand what the Me Too movement was, but wore the pin because Scarlett Johansson had them. Well, then all of a sudden these accusations come floating out, and all of a sudden Scarlett Johansson's like, give me my pin back. I want my pin back. So this is way back in like 2018. And she's like, but she did it in a kind of jokingly way, which it's like, can you honestly take her seriously when she's like, hey, give me my pin back? Thank you. Okay. I don't know. I'll have to look more into that because Scarlett Johansson does do it in a funny way. But is she pressured to do it? Does she want to do it? I don't know. But she asked for her pin back. But at the time in 2018, James Franco was on The Deuce that was being put on by Maggie Gyllenhaal. Now we know Maggie Gyllenhaal is very for women, very for the Me Too movement. She recently just did the Bride, where she does it from the woman's perspective. Now they asked Maggie Gyllenhaal, why are you still having James Franco on your show? And she replied with, she has read the accusations and she's talked to the other women on set, and the women on set are not bothered by James Franco. Therefore, she's not going to take away his character. So, good job for Maggie Gyllenhaal for making up her own mind and assessing what was going on her set. It was kind of weird because you are guilty before, because like The Ranch took Danny Masterson. I was watching The Ranch. I love that show. I don't know how Hollywood let such a Republican show get out there. And then they took Danny Masterson off as soon as the accusations came up. And then the court started. And they didn't even wait to see if he was guilty. They just took him off The Ranch. And so Maggie Gyllenhaal was like, it's okay. He's fine on our set. The women are not bothered as long as the women aren't complaining to me and they're not bothered and he's behaving in my eyes. I'm not going to take him off my set. And that was kind of like one of the last things that James Franco did in 2018. Seth Rogen came out and said he would continue working with James, but later on retracted that and stopped working with him. But it's funny because Coffee and Colts goes into Seth Rogen and his behavior. So it's not like, well, Seth Rogen was he put on to. So this is what makes me think that James Franco really is a changed man. He's not that bad. And when he was on the set, they interviewed Charlene for The Disaster Artist, who was with James Franco on that. And she spoke about the allegations and that he was influenced by the people around him. So this is where it comes in that he's wearing this Pause shirt that says Bruce Robinson on it, 2319, and he's trying to point you in a direction of, look, Hollywood is corrupt. These are the people around me, and this is what I did. I am sorry. I didn't mean to be this kind of guy. I am a changed kind of guy. And you know, he can't literally come out and say it. And there are some actors like Jim Carrey who are boldly coming out and say it, and then there are some like I think James Franco is silently trying to get it out there. Because why would people like Charlene and everybody on The Deuce sit there and say, well, I've read the allegations, but that's not what I see in James Franco. And James Franco, okay, young guy in Hollywood, okay, and everybody gets down on Trump for saying this years ago about, they asked Trump years ago, like a couple decades ago, what it's like being in Hollywood. And he's like, oh, women come up to you and say, grab my, and everybody's like, oh, this is what Trump. No, Trump was saying that this is what Hollywood's like. When you become famous and you become somebody so big and so popular, women literally throw themselves on top of you. And you do some crazy things. And James Franco may have done some crazy things. He may have, let the power go to his head on set, off set. And now he's looking back going, okay, I was being badly influenced by the people around me. This is not an okay thing. I am sorry. Here, and now he's pointing. He's like going, okay, I'm giving you the clues. Please investigate. And I think Sobering Stories did a wonderful job when they started talking about, okay, go look at what he hand wrote that name on the shirt for a reason. Those dates are time stamped for a reason. These things are pointed to for a reason. I'm surprised he just doesn't put clips of Corey Feldman at this point up on his thing. So, my assessment, I think, that's my assessment, in my opinion, that this is Hollywood turning on James Franco. I think they fear another Jim Carrey in him. Maybe even, and I hate to say this, but because Russell Brand has changed to his Christian ways, that he's so there are people who have changed, flipped out of Hollywood, and are ratting out Hollywood, and you have people, and Hollywood is being open enough about some of the bad things they're doing, but not open completely raw out there. And people are finally starting to believe Corey Feldman about the Charlie Sheen incidents, the Charlie things that are going on with Charlie Sheen and on the set, and why his other friend Corey unalived himself over the stress of being abused by Hollywood. And you have Amanda Bynes out there, you have the Olsen twins out there, you have proof that Hollywood is bad. You have Jim Carrey, who somehow is now starring in the new Jetsons movie. I think they got him like they got Ariana Grande and they got Selena Gomez, and they have now successfully gotten Jim Carrey, which is really sad because his movies have been somewhat improper, but he is a really good guy, and I do love how and the all seeing mocking tongue, everybody. I really think that James Franco, Coffee and Colts reports that he has enough money from the 3 Spider-Man movies he's done to suffice him for the rest of his life, he's got all this money and he doesn't need Hollywood anymore. Apparently he needs something though, because he's not coming out and directly saying it. Or maybe he's just an artist and he likes to say it in a cryptic way. But we'll have to keep watching his 2319 channel and see what you think about the cryptic way that he is putting this out there. And is James Franco are these really just allegations? Because there has been no court, okay? He didn't go down like Danny Masterson, okay? But Danny Masterson did some more horrible things, way more horrible than whatever James Franco's allegations are. He's just been accused of being inappropriate, but all his relationships were consensual. But were they underage? I haven't thoroughly dived into that part of all the people in the acting class putting out the accusations. But he says he's a changed man. I do look at Maggie Gyllenhaal and say, well, she's one woman that would not put up with somebody who really is guilty like Danny Masterson. So hopefully you guys have liked this 3-part series on TikTok. Hopefully you guys have liked this full uninterrupted crazy live TikTok. We can keep going on if you want. Let me know. I am live. You can ask questions on YouTube and to TikTok. Love ya. So that ends part 3 on TikTok. Part 3. But yeah, he is now out of Hollywood because he hasn't made anything since he was with Maggie Gyllenhaal on The Deuce. That was like one of the last things he'd done. Oh, okay, like oh, hopefully the Me Too community is not mad. Just kidding. Matt, Just kidding. I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. So we'll see. There's my three-parter series on James Franco. And what he's the only thing I don't know, and I'll say this over here maybe, I don't know, the only thing that bugs me about Coffee and Colts is her relationship with Rosie O'Donnell. Now, I understand standing up for the LGBTQ community, especially the lesbian community, when you are lesbian and you're standing up for those who are in Hollywood also. However, that doesn't mean just because you are lesbian, you are a good person. And Rosie O'Donnell is seen more like Ellen DeGeneres right now than Roseanne Barr. I love Roseanne Barr. By the way, fun fact about Roseanne Barr, I live here in Utah. I grew up for a little while in Magna, a little town called Magna. And there was a little elementary school there called Webster. Now, the only people that went to Webster is the people that lived on the older half of Magna, because my husband was raised in Magna, but he was off of 80th West, where I was off of 90th West. So that 10-block radius made a difference. He went to Pleasant Green and Magna Elementary. There's 3 elementary schools in Magna. So there's Pleasant Green, Magna, and Webster. Webster has been torn down for the last, I don't know, 15 or more years for most of my adult life. But I went to Webster from kindergarten to 4th grade. And my mom worked a lot in the PTA. And while I was there in that school, our principal, lovely lady, really tiny, cute little, wonderful, soft spoken, beautiful lady named Cindy Cannell. She was the principal there, and my mom was really good friends with Cindy. And she talked about how when Roseanne Barr was 13, Roseanne Barr was crossing the road and was hit by a car. And Roseanne Barr has told this story before about living in Utah and being hit by a car and it changing her life. Well, the driver was Cindy Cannell, my principal. So that's an interesting tidbit about Roseanne Barr and Utah and my 6th-degree connection to Roseanne Barr. So that's funny. Not funny. I mean, her getting hit by a car was bad, but the fact that Cindy Cannell, by the way, she carried that with her and always felt bad for that. So, by the way, Roseanne Barr, who will never watch this, my mom said I was too young to know all this. I just heard this from my mom, like I said, who was in the PTA. But Cindy Cannell always felt bad, by the way. She carried it with her for the rest of her life. So she's always felt very, very bad and guilty for that. So luckily Roseanne Barr survived it, and I don't know exactly what happened with the situation. Obviously, she didn't spend the rest of her life in jail or anything. She went on to be a principal, and like I said, she was a very lovely, soft-spoken woman. I can kind of picture her in my head because I do remember her. She was just a wonderful, beautiful woman, and I certainly believe that she was sorry for that. So that's my 6 degrees of separation, by the way. So everybody separated from everybody by 6 degrees. So you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, or you know somebody who knows somebody. So I do have a 6 degrees of separation. I do have a cousin in Hollywood who is one of the nicest people I've ever met. Beautiful person. My grandmother is sisters with her grandmother. And her grandmother lives here in Utah. And every 10 years, which will be next year, she turns, I think, 80 next year. Or is she turning 90? Oh my gosh. My great aunt is very, very old. I think she might be 79. I don't know. I think her 70th birthday was 10 years ago. Maybe she's turning 90. I don't know. She's got to be 90. I'll have to look at her birthday. Anyways, if she has the family reunion next year, I probably will be seeing this famous person I see her only at our family reunions every 10 years. So I saw her in 2007 and I saw her in 2007 before she became famous when she was quite young. And then I saw her again in 2017 after she built herself a career as the lead actress on Switched at Birth, Katie LeClaire. Her grandfather has passed away, but her grandmother, who she loves so very much, is still alive and here in Utah. And so, by knowing me, you know Katie LeClaire. So, there's your 6 degrees of separation to somebody famous who's been on The Big Bang Theory as Rajesh's girlfriend and has I was like, I'm so jealous of you. To my family reunion in 2017, I brought my ex-husband's wife and daughters. I let them come to the family reunion, and I had my little Polaroid camera there, and I introduced them to Katie, took a picture with it, and had her sign it, and then they got to speak with her, and she was not upset at being bothered at a family reunion because they're like, well, Rose, she's at a family reunion. Would she want to even? No, she's fine with it. She's fine with it. And so without a problem, she took the picture, signed it, explained to them how she learned sign language. And she's just such a wonderful person. She sat there and talked to them for a little while. And so I did that favor for them. So it was fun doing that favor, being like, hey. So there is witnesses, by the way. I'm just kidding. I'm like, there's witnesses. And somewhere on my Facebook is a picture of her holding my son, who is now 10 years old. He was just a year old in 2017. And I have a picture of her playing with him on the grass. So my 10-year-old son doesn't know it yet. But he's been held and played with by a famous person. So I'll have to explain it to him one day. It'll be fun. And find the picture because the picture's drowned somewhere in Facebook. I have 2 Facebooks, so it's drowned in one of them. I think it's probably on this other one that I don't check often because, yeah. Anyways, back to James Franco. We'll quit talking about stars. James Franco. Should we watch some of his videos? Should we conclude this live? I think James Franco is getting Jim Carreyed. I think Hollywood... People think Utah is a safe place. Let's talk for a minute about Utah and the corruption here in Utah. Because it mimics Hollywood, okay? So Hollywood, they have pulled out accusations against James Franco. But none of this has gone to court. None of this has done anything, okay? And I want to see something real quick. Okay. Yeah, okay, my mic's still working, just making sure, because that's solid green. I don't like that. Okay, so why is there accusations and tons of them, but no court? Now, there's this lovely couple called We the People Utah, very bold people here in Utah who are covering the corruption here in Utah, and they covered the Hamlin children, where the Hamlin children, so they're part of this cult here in Utah that is hiding. It's a satanic cult that is hiding inside the LDS church. It mostly resides at the bottom of Salt Lake County towards Draper, West Jordan, South Jordan, that borders the mountain just before you go into Provo in Utah County. And it also covers Provo, Lehigh, Utah County, American Fork, and a little ways down south towards the little tiny municipalities and cities out there. And so this cult is in the police, it's in the CPS, it's in the judges, it's in the government, it's all over. Now, when I was growing up, was it Mike Levitt was the governor of Utah. I went to school with, I don't know if it was his son, nephew, somehow related to him, Tim Levitt. I went to school with Tim Levitt. I don't know. He had the Levitt last name. So I did go to school with the Levitt in Salt Lake. We lived in Salt Lake City. And Mike Levitt's brother was part of this cult. We don't know if Mike Levitt was part of it. We do know that Mike Levitt pardoned his brother for all of the essay on children he did and covered it up. So whether he was part of the cult or not, he was part of the cover up, which is just as bad in my book as you might have well been doing it with your brother because you helped your brother. Okay. You let people get away with this. And so this is how deep it is ingrained in Utah. Okay. It's been there. And I was in school in the 90s because I was in 6th grade in 92, 93 when I was in school with Tim Levitt and his possible family member, Mike Levitt, who was current governor of Utah in the early 90s. This cult has been around for generations. It grows through the generations. And so there are some neighborhoods down in these areas, allegedly in Utah, where this cult thrives. And they own neighborhoods. And so basically, this Hamlin guy was a psychologist. So they're also in our psychology departments. Oh my, just you cannot trust anybody, okay? So he would take the children in and his clients, and well, you know where I'm going with this. I don't have to say this, okay? Where we're going with what Hamlin did. Somehow I think he said something that upset the cult. And so the cult decided, we're going to put you through court. And they took his daughters and they said, you're going to divorce your wife and we're going to take your daughters. And they had them testify in court, but they only told them what they could testify to and what they couldn't. So they testified to a minimal amount of this goings on of the cult, enough to get him in prison, and then gave his wife a new husband and everything. And this cult controls everything. And this is kind of where Hollywood is at too. They take you and they only put up the charges that they want, enough to get what they want. Is it that the public hates you, you're ousted out of Hollywood? Is it that you go to court and you go to jail? Is Danny Masterson truly guilty? Was this Hollywood putting this on? Or these women were brave enough to step outside the Scientology, and their first court failed because they needed the jury to believe, what was it, 2 out of 3 of the victims, or 3 out of 4, like the majority of the victims. And finally, in the second court case, they did get the jury to believe. But I think it also had to deal with public eye because everybody deemed Danny Masterson guilty prior to. And so either Hollywood did this to him or they couldn't stop it and justice did take over and he really is guilty and he deserves this. And Hollywood also made Danny Masterson's. Who's Danny Masterson's wife again? She's famous. Let me see who Danny Masterson's wife is. Because I remember, and what's funny enough is his wife isn't Busy Phillips, is it? Because I want to say Busy Phillips. Why do I want to say Busy Phillips? Who was just in our James Franco story. Okay, Danny Masterson's wife. Oh, Bijou Phillips. Who's Bijou Phillips? Okay, let's see. Is B. Okay, how do you spell her name? Bijou. B. Okay, let's try this now. Hold on. Okay, is Bijou Phillips related to Busy Phillips? And are they related to Wilson Phillips? Let's see this. Okay. Bijou Phillips is the daughter of John Phillips and Genevieve Waite. Relatives, Mackenzie Phillips is her half-sister. Ooh, China. Okay, China Phillips is her half-sister. Because isn't China Phillips... China is in the band Wilson Phillips. She's... Because there's two Phillips sisters. And then Carney Wilson, China Phillips. Yeah. Okay. So Phillips was born in... Okay. Phillips was born in 1980, so she's just a year older than me, in Greenwich, Connecticut, and is the daughter of John Phillips of the Mamas and Papas. So that's right. Her half-sisters are the Phillips in Mackenzie, Jeffrey, and China. So Bijou was placed in foster care with a family in Bolton. She lived there on and off. Okay. It does not say anything about Bijou Phillips being related to, what's her name? Busy Phillips. Trying to see. Okay. Because maybe she's not related to Busy Phillips. Busy Phillips is much more than just Michelle Williams' best friend. Let's see. Okay, it's not saying anything if Bijou and Busy are sisters. Does anybody know? Is Bijou and Busy sisters? So Bijou is from the Mamas and the Papas. So Bijou did end up divorcing. Busy Phillips related to Bijou Phillips. No. That's okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna do this really the quicker way to find out. So that answers the question of who Bijou Phillips is. Because this would be interesting if they are related. No, they're not related, despite the similar last names. Bijou Phillips and actress Busy Phillips come from completely different families. In fact, Busy Phillips has joked in interviews that people often confuse her with Bijou. Okay, Bijou is the daughter of John Phillips of the folk rock band The Mamas and the Papas, and Busy, her real first name is Elizabeth, grew up in Illinois and is known for shows like Freaks and Geeks, Dawson's Creek, and Cougar Town. So, okay, so Bijou Phillips has two L's where Busy Phillips has one L and two P's. So their names are spelled different, but pronounced the same. Okay, end of story. There we go. Now we know. Okay, so they are two separate people. So there's not that connection, which is interesting. More interesting if there was, but okay. So Danny Masterson is married to Bijou Phillips, who has now left him. They have a daughter together. She actually stood by his side for a while. but she's not anymore. After the letters didn't work and the sentencing and everything, she is now, and people are getting very angry, she is now backed off. So there's that. So, James Franco. I think he could be a guy that got caught up in Hollywood, by the way. I just think I think he was doing some weird stuff. If you name James Franco's movies like Pineapple Express, I mean, Spider-Man was the most normal thing he did with Tobey Maguire, but Tobey Maguire has been linked to this major poker game he holds with people like Leonardo DiCaprio. And people joke about Leonardo DiCaprio and the fact that once his girlfriend gets 25, should we talk about the untouchables in Hollywood? Because when I talk about Leonardo DiCaprio, first of all, he's very untouchable. So why has none of these young women come forward about Leonardo DiCaprio? I mean, I guess they're all over 18. He doesn't touch anybody under 18, but under 25. And how old is Leonardo DiCaprio now? It's like, how old is Leo? $1974. Okay, he's really old, okay? Because 74 means he is like 53-ish. Okay, yeah, so he's dating women under half his age. More than half his age. There are people that it's interestingly weird are untouchable in Hollywood, and they get to come out and say whatever they want. Is everybody about to know who I'm about to name drop, who is untouchable in Hollywood? Gets to say whatever he wants and does all the jokes about this. We're talking about Ricky Gervais. Mm-hmm. Is he get away with it because he's British and British humor? But when I think of joking about Leonardo DiCaprio, I think of Ricky Gervais. And the Hollywood speeches he's done. Amazing. Go, Ricky. You know, he's been in some crazy movies. Like, I love his movie, The Invention of Lying. Good movie. But he is one of those people that is outspoken, like Jim Carrey was for a moment in time. Outspoken. Oh, I do gotta go I gotta take care of things around the house. But sitting here going, it's almost 1:00. I was listening to some stuff prior to wanting to come do this. I wanted to get myself a little educated. I wanted to rewatch Coffee and Colts' video on James Franco and take notes and kind of form my own opinion about who James Franco is and why is he doing these 2319s. And I love that Sobering Stories said, so Hollywood likes to blatantly put it in our face what they're doing. Harvesting screams from children, aka adrenochrome. Another channel to watch that is very outspoken about what's going on in the world, adrenochrome things, aliens, Bigfoot, they believe in Bigfoot, all this other stuff, they believe in aliens, Bigfoot, but they're very, 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 and I've pointed these guys out on my show before too, very Christian. I love that they're Christian. They're not LDS. I'm LDS. That's okay. You don't have to be LDS for me to like you. I do love that they run a very Christian channel, so you're going to go on there and you're not going to hear a bunch of swearing, but you're going to get funny, you're going to get news, and the number one thing I like about these guys, so it's two guys and his wife, and if they don't know something, they'll tell you they don't know. They're not afraid to Google it. They're not afraid to look it up on their lives right there. They're not afraid to just pull out their phones and be like, okay, this is what I heard. And so they don't say wrong information and then double down on it. And I love a channel that is not afraid to admit that they don't know something. They need to look it up and they'll get back to you later. And it is Sunday Cool. I haven't watched him in a little bit, but I used to watch him every single day, every single night. Couldn't wait for their next video to come out. Sunday Cool there for a long while was my news, because I don't listen to the news, but I will listen to Sunday Cool. And I love Sunday Cool and all the stuff that they do. I hope their channel keeps up. They're in Florida, so they have they're in the state of Florida where a lot of things politically are going down. You know, so that's funny. So go. I don't think they've done anything on James Franco though. They do more things when it comes to the tinfoil hat stuff and aliens, Bigfoot, chupacabra, all that good stuff. And yeah. So anyways, let me know what you think about James Franco. Do you think he really is this bad guy, that these accusations are correct? Or do you think this is Hollywood canceling another person who is now trying to indirectly, artistically take his time to get a message out to us about who's the bad people in Hollywood, what they're doing in Hollywood? Go be a detective, go find the clues, go watch James Franco's video, go dig down into it. I appreciate you guys for watching my channel. I'm a very small channel, but that's okay. I do this because I like it. I hate it when people sit there and say, well, if I get enough likes, if I get enough comments, and you make it worth my while, I will come back and do more information. No, I'm just going to come back and give you more information. Despite, even if I get no likes, no comments, no nothing, I will come back and I am still going to give you the information. That's just what I do. I'm not going to manipulate you into, well, I need a certain amount to make it worth my while. I don't. So, anyways, love you guys. I got to get on to things tomorrow. I don't think I have time to stream. I will be baking a lot tomorrow. A friend needs me to bring her some meals, and I am going to, I thought about, should I live stream it? I will be making a few different dishes. I will be making an American dish, which is chicken pot pie. I'm going to try and make this Russian dish because I love fig Newtons, okay? But with my diet, I can't have fig Newtons unless I make them myself. And I do have Russian in my genealogy, by the way. So this is interesting for me to do this. So there's this Russian dish, dessert kind of thing I want to do called, give me 2 seconds. I got to go back and find it. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to make this Russian dish. Oh, come on. It's not on here? Okay, hold on. Okay, maybe not that. Okay. Hold on, sorry. I got the wrong one. Okay, right here. Okay, here it is. Okay. Okay, so it's called Russian pryaniki, a traditional spice honey cookie cake. I don't have a woodland mold, so I'm just going to mold it however I want. Probably just a regular heart, because I do have some heart cookie sheets. So I'm going to make some pryaniki, but using einkorn flour because I don't use regular flour. And then I will also be making the national dish from Lithuania called shaltabrashe. And I have talked to somebody on my stream and in my Discord who lives in Lithuania. They hold a festival for this dish, Shalta Brashe, and they do not like this dish because they're not a fan of beets. But beets is in my diet. So, and it's served cold, so it is a cold summer soup. Interesting. So here in America, we're used to hot soups in the winter time. So I'm going to make this Shalta Brashe, and I did ask them how to properly pronounce that. So I will be making a few dishes, American, Russian, and also indigenous. I made this the other day, and I'm going to make more of it because it's really good. I was trying to make biscuits out of einkorn flour. I was unsuccessful in making biscuits, but I was able to make goulette, it was around before the 1950s, before electric toasters and everything came around. And I got this recipe from a guy on Turtle Mountain himself, who said, make it this way because this is how your ancestors, my grandfathers from Turtle Mountain, this is how they made goulette. And it turned out to be, I'll show you a picture of it. It turned out to be this fabulous, like, giant biscuit. It's amazing flavor. Love it. Just this giant biscuit. So tomorrow I will be doing a lot of cooking. So maybe you guys want to see that. I don't know. Maybe I'll do 3-part series of cooking dish. Here's the Lithuanian dish. Here's the indigenous dish. Maybe I'll do a 3-part. Yay. Okay. Love you guys. I will talk to you later. Tell me what you think. James Franco. What side are you on? Okay. Love you guys. See you later. See you later. There's a song about that. Oh gosh. Songs come to my head every time I say